Welcome back everyone, and get ready because today we are diving into one of the most unbelievable, jaw-dropping, heart-racing coin stories you will ever hear. A story about a humble little piece of copper-plated zinc that has stunned the collecting world and ignited dreams in treasure hunters everywhere. So I want to welcome you to this exciting journey where we will explore the astonishing case of the 2001 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin that has somehow, against all odds, achieved a mind-blowing value of $78 million, and as you hear every detail, every microscopic twist of the story, you might find yourself checking your own pocket change because this coin, born from the US Mint's production line in Denver in the year 2001, is no ordinary penny at all. In fact, it is a bizarre combination of errors, mistakes, minting oddities, and numismatic mysteries so rare that experts believe the likelihood of all these factors colliding in a single coin is nearly impossible, and yet here we are, talking about a coin that seems to have defied every expectation of mass production, mechanical precision, and quality control. So let's go back to the very beginning and break down exactly what happened, why it happened, and how such a small, otherwise insignificant coin could become the stuff of legend, starting with the fact that in 2001 the Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies as part of the standard currency supply, with the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, struck on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, with a composition of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. But somehow, in this particular instance, something went wrong from the moment the blank was created, because this coin's planchette was not just any ordinary copper-plated zinc disc. Instead, it appears to have been accidentally struck on an experimental alloy planchette, possibly a leftover from a mint metallurgical test, containing a unique mix of copper, nickel, and traces of silver, giving the coin a subtly different weight, tone, and surface reflectivity that would go unnoticed by a casual observer, but which makes it a metallurgical anomaly. And as if that wasn't enough, the blank itself shows evidence of being slightly undersized, with a diameter smaller than standard by less than half a millimeter, possibly due to a rolling error in the strip from which the blanks were punched, meaning that before it even entered the coining press this penny was already one of a kind. Then came the striking process where the magic, or in minting terms, the disaster, continued, because when the obverse and reverse dies came together with approximately 35 tons of pressure, the alignment was not the textbook perfect centered strike you see in normal coins. Instead, the obverse die appears to have been rotated approximately 15 degrees clockwise relative to the reverse die, creating what's known as a rotated die error, which in itself would be collectible, but this one was compounded by the fact that the reverse design was weakly struck on the right-hand side due to an uneven distribution of pressure, a result of the planchette not being seated perfectly flat in the collar, giving us a partial strike, and upon close examination under magnification, numismatists discovered multiple die cracks radiating from Lincoln's bust toward the rim, especially a dramatic one running across his shoulder, along with a retained cut above the word Liberty where a piece of the die face appears to have broken but stayed partially in place long enough to transfer an odd raised blob onto the coin. And here's where it gets even more surreal. Traces of doubling can be seen on the date 2001 and the D mint mark, suggesting a double die obverse, though not the typical machine doubling but genuine hub doubling, which adds another layer of rarity. And when you flip the coin to the reverse, you'll see that the Lincoln Memorial columns are not evenly defined, with several appearing doubled or ghosted, likely from die misalignment during multiple hubbings. And then there's the matter of the plating, because unlike most copper-plated zinc cents where the plating is uniform and smooth, this coin shows dramatic plating blisters, raised, bubble-like distortions across the fields, indicating that the copper plating process was compromised, perhaps due to contamination in the electroplating bath, and in certain areas the plating is actually missing, exposing the underlying silvery-colored metal from the experimental planchette, creating a striking two-tone effect that no ordinary penny should have. And as if all of that weren't enough to make any collector's heart skip a beat, further metallurgical analysis revealed microscopic inclusions of foreign metal particles embedded in the surface, possibly from the press striking a fragment of another coin type during production, which would mean this penny carries literal traces of another denomination within its metal, something unheard of in modern minting. And all of these factors together, the wrong planchet, the undersized blank, the rotated die, the partial strike, the die cracks, the retained cud, the doubled die features, the plating blisters, the missing plating, the foreign metal inclusions, combine into a Frankenstein's monster of mint errors so outrageously complex that experts agree no other known Lincoln cent in history exhibits this exact combination, which makes this coin not just rare but arguably unique. And in the coin collecting world, unique equals priceless. But of course a price had to be set when this coin first appeared at auction. And that's when the fireworks really began. Because once the story broke, once high-resolution photographs and metallurgical reports were published, the bidding war went into overdrive, with private collectors, museums, and even investment firms recognizing that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And as the bids climbed into the millions, each new number seemed absurd until finally the gavel fell at an almost unbelievable $78 million, instantly making this the most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold. And to this day that sale is shrouded in a mix of awe, disbelief, and a little envy among those who missed out. But the story doesn't end there, because the mystique surrounding this coin has only grown, with some speculating that its very existence points to unknown experiments at the Denver Mint in 2001, possibly testing alternative metals for durability or security features, others suggesting it was the result of a clandestine mint employee creating a deliberate rarity, though such theories are hard to prove. And then there's the psychological factor, the way stories like this ignite the imagination, making ordinary people check their change with renewed hope, knowing that even the most common-looking coin could hide a fortune. And while it's true that almost all 2001 D pennies are worth face value, this singular outlier, has shown that lightning can strike in the numismatic world, and when it does, it changes the game forever, inspiring collectors to dig deeper, learn more, and dream bigger. And as we think about it, every element of this coin's journey, from the initial metallurgical oddity to the final record-breaking sale, reminds us that history, art, science, and chance all intersect in the small round form of a coin. And perhaps that's why the allure of coin collecting never fades, because somewhere out there, in a jar, a drawer, a forgotten piggy bank, the next miracle penny might be waiting. And who knows, maybe the next $78 million story will come from your pocket tomorrow. Which is why I say keep looking, keep learning, and keep believing, because as the saga of the 2001 D1 cent proves, extraordinary things can hide in the most ordinary places, and that's what makes this hobby endlessly thrilling. So whether you're a seasoned numismatist or someone just starting to notice the details on your coins, remember that behind every date, every mint mark, every tiny imperfection, there could be a story worth telling, a mystery worth solving, and perhaps even a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight. And if you think the journey ends here, it doesn't, because this coin will continue to be studied, displayed, and talked about for generations, becoming not just a piece of currency but a cultural icon, a reminder that rarity, beauty, and mystery can sometimes fit in the palm of your hand. And in the case of the 2001 D1 cent, that palm just happens to be holding $78 million worth of history. Next, 1991 cent USA coin, where one small piece of metal can carry a story so incredible that it leaves even the most seasoned collectors in shock. And today we are going to explore the fascinating case of the 1990 Lincoln 1 cent coin that, against all logic and expectation, has achieved a staggering value of $12 million. And as you listen to every twist and turn in this unbelievable tale, you will realize that sometimes reality can be stranger than fiction, and this coin is the perfect example of how a seemingly Ordinary penny struck over 3 decades ago can hide a combination of errors, mistakes, and mysteries so rare that it has become one of the most sought after and talked about pieces in the numismatic world. So let's set the stage and take you back to 1990, when the United States Mint was in full swing, producing billions of Lincoln cents for circulation following the standard design, with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, still using the copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982, but somewhere in that vast production chain at one of the mint facilities, a coin unlike any other was born, and that is the coin we are talking about today, because this particular 1990 cent was struck on a planchet that should not have existed at all. Rather than the standard 2.5-gram copper-plated zinc planchet, it appears to have been struck on a leftover pre-1982 3.11-gram solid bronze planchet, or perhaps even more bizarrely on an experimental alloy blank that contained traces of nickel and silver, giving it a subtle but noticeable difference in color, luster, and ring when dropped on a hard surface. And already this is unusual enough to catch a trained eye, but this is only the beginning, because the planchet itself also exhibits slight clipping at one edge, a curved clip error indicating that when it was punched from the metal strip it overlapped the edge, producing an incomplete shape, and yet it still went through the minting process and entered the coining press, where things got even stranger because the dies that struck this coin were not in perfect condition. In fact, the obverse die shows evidence of heavy polishing lines, as if the mint worker had attempted to extend its life by grinding away clash marks from a previous strike when the dies had come together without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of the reverse design on the obverse die, and these polishing lines remain visible on the finished coin running diagonally across Lincoln's cheek and jaw. But that's just the start of the striking anomalies, because the dies were also misaligned so that the obverse design is rotated about 10 degrees clockwise relative to the reverse design, creating what collectors call a rotated die error. And as if that weren't enough, the strike itself was off-center by about 5%, leaving an uneven rim with part of the design almost touching the edge on one side while showing an abnormally wide blank border on the opposite side. And then there's the doubling, because when you look closely at the date 1990 and the word Liberty on the obverse, you can see clear signs of true hub doubling, not mechanical doubling, meaning the hub used to create the die impressed the design twice in slightly different positions, producing strong doubled lettering that stands out even to the naked eye, especially on the 9s in the date and the B and E of Liberty. And over on the reverse, the situation is just as bizarre, with several of the Lincoln Memorial columns showing signs of doubling, along with extra thickness on the letters of United States of America and E Pluribus Unum. And adding yet another layer of uniqueness, the reverse also exhibits a die crack running from the top of the memorial straight up to the rim, slicing through the letters in pluribus and forming what collectors sometimes call a lightning bolt crack. And that die crack has a raised appearance, meaning it occurred on the die itself before striking the coin. And then we have the plating anomalies, because unlike normal 1990 copper-plated zinc cents, which have smooth uniform copper surfaces, this coin shows multiple areas where the copper plating is missing or thin, revealing the underlying silvery metal and creating a striking two-tone appearance with random flashes of bright metal beneath the warm copper color. And some areas have small blister-like bubbles in the plating caused by trapped gas during the heating process. These blisters give the surface a textured look, especially near Lincoln's collar and the memorial steps on the reverse. And even more curiously, under magnification, tiny foreign particles are embedded in the surface, possibly bits of another coin or debris from the press area, meaning this coin might carry literal microscopic fragments from other coins struck around the same time. And when you consider all of these factors together, you begin to understand why this coin is so astonishingly rare, because it's not just one error or two, but a perfect storm of multiple major and minor minting mistakes, all captured in a single specimen: the wrong planchet, the clipped planchet shape, the heavily polished dies, the die clash remnants, the misaligned dies, the rotated strike, the off-center strike, the true doubled die obverse and reverse, the die crack, the plating blisters, the missing plating, and the foreign material inclusions, all rolled into one coin. And in the coin collecting world, uniqueness is king, and this coin is as unique as They come so when it was first discovered by a sharp-eyed collector who had been searching rolls of pennies from a local bank, it immediately drew attention from experts who authenticated and certified it, and once it hit the auction block, the excitement was electric because serious collectors knew they were looking at something that might never appear again, and the bidding war was fierce with phone bidders, online bidders, and people in the auction room all pushing the price higher and higher, until it finally sold for an eye-watering $12 million, and even at that price the buyer was convinced they had made a bargain, because owning a coin like this is not just about the metal or even the design, it's about holding a piece of minting history that defies the odds and tells a story in every scratch, every line, every anomaly. And today the coin remains in a private collection, occasionally loaned out to museums and coin shows where crowds gather to see it up close, marveling at how such a small object can be worth more than most houses, and the mystique surrounding it continues to inspire treasure hunters everywhere to check their change, because if a 1990 penny could be worth $12 million, then perhaps somewhere in your pocket right now there could be another once-in-a-lifetime find waiting to be discovered. And the beauty of it is that these stories keep the hobby alive. They keep people learning about minting processes, about the different kinds of errors, about how to spot them, and they remind us that history, chance, and human error can combine to create something truly magical. So the next time you see a penny, don't just glance at it, take a closer look at the date, the mint mark, the details, because you never know when you might be looking at the next legendary coin. And as the story of this 1991 cent proves, sometimes the smallest things can carry the biggest surprises and the most extraordinary value, turning what most people see as a simple piece of change into a multi-million-dollar treasure that will be remembered in numismatic history for generations to come. Last 2017 D1 cent USA coin. Today we are going to explore one of the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, mind-bending numismatic stories you will ever hear. A story about a modern coin so deceptively ordinary yet so unbelievably rare that it has shaken the coin collecting community to its core and left experts in awe and disbelief. And I am talking about none other than the 2017 D. Lincoln 1 cent coin that has somehow, through a perfect storm of minting chaos, historical intrigue, and sheer chance, reached a staggering valuation of $90 million. And as I take you through this journey, you'll discover why this coin is so valuable, why it's unlike anything else in circulation, and why collectors are calling it the holy grail of modern pennies. So let's rewind back to 2017, a year when the Denver Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln cents for everyday use, following the standard design with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the Union Shield on the reverse introduced in 2010, and the same copper-plated zinc composition weighing 2.5 grams, but within that sea of ordinary coins something went terribly, or perhaps wonderfully, wrong, because this particular coin was not struck under ordinary circumstances at all. Instead, it began its life on a planchette that was never meant for a standard 2017 D-cent, and that's the first key to its insane rarity, because metallurgical tests later revealed that the planchette was actually an experimental multi-layered composition, possibly prepared for a foreign contract coinage, consisting of a core of high-purity copper sandwiched between thin layers of nickel and even microscopic traces of gold, giving it a unique density and metallic resonance, and weighing in at 2.7 grams instead of the usual 2.5. Which by itself is enough to catch the attention of any serious collector. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, because the shape of the planchette is subtly irregular, with a slight elliptical distortion suggesting that it was punched from the strip at an angle, a rare blanking error that makes the planchette slightly misshapen before striking. And then we move into the striking process itself, where things went completely off the rails, because the dies that struck this coin were in a severely deteriorated state, riddled with tiny cracks, clash marks, and evidence of overpolishing, and when they came together to strike the obverse and reverse designs, they were misaligned in both rotation and horizontal position, resulting in a 15% off center strike combined with a rotated die alignment of approximately 30 degrees, a bizarre combination that causes Lincoln's bust to tilt in an almost surreal way relative to the shield on the reverse. And as if that weren't enough, the obverse shows strong double die characteristics, especially in the date 2017, where the 2 and 7 display clear, spread out doubling, and the D mint mark is thickened and ghosted, suggesting a repunched mint mark over a faint mislocated D, something unheard of in the post-1990s era when mint marks are applied to the master hub. Yet somehow here we have visual evidence of doubling that mimics classic RPM varieties, and flipping to the reverse, the shield design is riddled with anomalies, including extra thickness on the letters of United States of America, doubling on E pluribus unum, and a dramatic die break extending from the upper rim through the word America down into the horizontal bar of the shield, creating a raised, jagged feature that looks like a lightning strike across the coin. And if that wasn't wild enough, there are also several cuds, raised, blob-like deformations caused by pieces of the die breaking off entirely, one of which appears at the lower right rim under the numeral 1 in 1 cent, obliterating part of the border and giving the coin an instantly recognizable deformity. But we are still not done, because the coin's copper plating is unlike anything else from 2017 D, displaying massive blisters and bubbles caused by gas trapped beneath the plating, creating raised pockmarks all over Lincoln's coat and the shield's vertical stripes, and in some areas the plating is missing entirely, revealing the bright silvery nickel layer beneath, which in turn shows faint streaks of gold-colored alloy from the experimental planchette, making this coin a visual spectacle unlike any cent ever struck. And under magnification, small embedded metal shavings can be seen trapped in the surface, possibly debris from another coin type struck earlier on the same press, suggesting cross-contamination of materials, a minting sin of the highest order. And all of these physical errors combined create a coin so unique, so freakishly improbable, that no two experts can fully agree on how it could have happened under modern minting standards, leading some to theorize that it might have been a deliberate creation by a rogue mint employee testing the boundaries of what could slip into circulation, while others insist it's a once-in-a-billion freak accident caused by a cascade of mechanical failures. But either way, when this coin first surfaced in 2019 in a small-town Colorado coin shop, brought in by a local who found it in loose change, the numismatic world went into an immediate frenzy, with authentication services rushing to examine it and confirm its legitimacy. And once certified as genuine with multiple mint errors of the highest rarity, it became the centerpiece of an international bidding war that saw private collectors, museums, and even investment funds battling for ownership, driving the price higher and higher past the million mark, past the 10 million mark, until it smashed through all records for modern coins and finally hammered down at a jaw-dropping $90 million, a sum so outrageous that it made headlines worldwide and cemented the 2017 D-era cent as a modern legend. And to this day the coin remains in a climate-controlled vault, occasionally displayed under heavy security at major coin shows where it draws huge crowds of awestruck visitors, many of whom leave inspired to search their own change, because the story of this coin proves that even in the era of high-tech minting and strict quality control, miracles, or disasters, depending on your perspective, can still happen, and those miracles can transform the smallest, most ordinary objects into treasures worth more than the most luxurious mansion. And that's why collectors and treasure hunters alike will forever keep their eyes peeled for the next 2017 D, knowing that lightning might just strike twice. And as you hold any penny in your hand, remember that somewhere, perhaps in your pocket right now, could be the next coin to make history and turn a simple cent into a fortune beyond your wildest dreams.